The emergency transmission crackled across 17 star systems, carrying desperation in its digital wake. On the bridge of the Terran destroyer Prometheus, Captain Sarah Chun paused her morning briefing as the communications officer's face went pale. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from the Kepler 442 system," Lieutenant Torres announced, his voice tight with concern. It's bad, ma'am." Chun set down her coffee and moved to the central display. The hologram materialized, showing a reptilian face marked by scales that had lost their natural luster. The being's large eyes, normally golden according to the xenobiological databases, appeared dim and unfocused. "This is High Counselor Vextar of the Zephyrian Collective," the alien spoke in heavily accented standard. We require immediate medical assistance. A plague has swept through our colonies. 60% of our population is infected. Our medical knowledge is insufficient. We have tried everything." The transmission cut to images that made several bridge officers look away. Zephyrian cities that should have bustled with millions now stood eerily quiet. Bodies lined the streets while automated systems continued their functions, oblivious to the catastrophe. Medical facilities overflowed with patients displaying horrific symptoms, scales falling off in sheets, respiratory systems failing, neural degradation evident in the vacant stares of the afflicted. "We know humans possess advanced medical technology," Vextar continued, his voice breaking. "We formally request immediate humanitarian aid under the Galactic Accords. We can offer compensation, rare minerals, technological exchanges, territorial concessions. Please, our children are dying." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of life support systems. Chun stared at the display, her mind racing through protocols and possibilities. The Zephyrian Collective had been neutral in most galactic affairs, neither ally nor enemy to humanity. They were known as peaceful traders and scholars, their lizard-like appearance hiding brilliant minds that had contributed significantly to galactic mathematics and engineering. "Lieutenant Torres, give me Admiral Harrison on subspace," Chun ordered. "Priority 1 encryption." While waiting for the connection, Chun reviewed what she knew about the Zephyrians. They had evolved on a desert world with 3 suns, developing highly efficient metabolisms and remarkable problem-solving abilities. Their society valued knowledge above all else, and they had been among the first species to welcome humans into the galactic community 50 years ago. Now, they were dying, and they had turned to humanity for help. The hologram flickered, replaced by the stern face of Admiral Marcus Harrison, commander of the Terran Fifth Fleet. His gray hair and weathered features spoke of decades spent in the void between stars. "Captain Chun, I've just received the same transmission. What's your current status?" "We're 3 days out from Kepler, 442 at maximum burn, Admiral. The Prometheus has a full medical complement and our latest pharmaceutical synthesizers." Harrison nodded grimly. "The situation is worse than the transmission indicated. Our intelligence suggests this isn't a natural plague. We're detecting energy signatures consistent with biological weapons deployment. Someone engineered this." Chun felt ice form in her stomach. "Any idea who?" "The hegemony has been expanding their territory in that sector. The Zephyrians control several systems rich in quantum crystals, materials the hegemony desperately needs for their war machine." Harrison paused, consulting something off-screen. "Official orders are coming through now, but I'll give you the summary. Operation Nightingale is a go. You're to proceed to Zephyrian space immediately." "Just the Prometheus, sir?" Harrison's expression grew darker. "Negative. The Fifth Fleet is mobilizing. 12 destroyers, 6 cruisers, and the carrier Defiance are en route. Expected arrival in 72 hours. Chun raised an eyebrow. "That seems like significant firepower for a medical mission, Admiral." "The Zephyrians asked for medical aid, Captain. They're going to get it. But we're not sending our people into what might be a biological warfare zone without proper protection. And if we find proof that someone deliberately unleashed this plague, Harrison left the threat unfinished. The transmission ended, leaving Chun staring at the tactical display. The Prometheus was a modern destroyer, equipped with the latest in human military technology. Her crew of 200 included some of the best medical officers in the fleet, along with enough firepower to level a small moon. But looking at those images of dying Zephyrians, she wondered if it would be enough. Helm, set course for Kepler. 442, maximum burn, she ordered. All hands to emergency stations. Chief Medical Officer to the bridge immediately. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves arrived within minutes, still pulling on her uniform jacket. The ship's chief medical officer was a tall woman with prematurely gray hair and intelligent brown eyes. She had volunteered for deep space service after losing her family in the Proxima incident 5 years earlier, channeling her grief into saving lives across the galaxy. I've been monitoring the Zephyrian transmissions, Reeves said without preamble. The symptoms don't match any known pathogen in our databases. Rapid cellular degradation, neural collapse, and complete immune system failure. It's like their bodies are attacking themselves. Could it be engineered? Almost certainly. The progression is too uniform, too efficient. Natural plagues have irregular infection patterns, periods of dormancy, random mutations. This is targeting specific Zephyrian biological systems with surgical precision. Chun pulled up the star charts. How long do they have? Based on the infection rates shown in their transmissions, maybe 2 weeks before total societal collapse. After that, Reeves shook her head. The Zephyrian collective could be extinct within a month. The weight of that statement settled over the bridge. An entire species, millions of years of evolution, thousands of years of civilization, all potentially ending because someone wanted their resources badly enough to commit genocide. There's something else, Reeves continued, her voice dropping. I've been analyzing the biological markers in their distress transmissions. This pathogen, it's based on human research. The bridge went dead silent. Chun felt as if someone had punched her in the stomach. Explain. 10 years ago, humanity developed biological countermeasures against various alien physiologies, defensive research to protect our colonies from potential threats. The theoretical models for anti-Zephyrian pathogens match what we're seeing here. You're saying someone stole our research, or bought it, or extracted it from captured personnel. The hegemony has been known to use enhanced interrogation techniques on prisoners of war. Chen's hands clenched into fists. The hegemony of unified worlds was humanity's most persistent enemy, an alliance of species that viewed human expansion as a threat to galactic order. They had been responsible for numerous atrocities over the past decade, but using human research to commit genocide against an innocent species reached new levels of horror. Captain, the communications officer called out, we're receiving another transmission from the Zephyrian system. It's different. The hologram reformed, but instead of the desperate plea for help, they saw a Zephyrian military officer. His scales were still healthy, suggesting he might be aboard a spacecraft rather than on the infected worlds. Attention approaching human vessels, the officer said in perfect standard. I am Commander Sith of the Zephyrian Defense Fleet. Our long-range sensors detect your approach. While we appreciate your humanitarian intentions, we must inform you that hostile forces have established a quarantine perimeter around our system. The image shifted to show tactical displays. Chun counted at least 30 hegemony warships arranged in a defensive formation around the outer planets of the Kepler 442 system. The hegemony claims they are preventing the spread of the plague. Sith continued. In reality, they are ensuring no aid reaches our people. They have already destroyed 2 merchant vessels attempting to deliver medical supplies. We will not be able to guarantee your safety if you continue your approach. The transmission ended, but not before Chun caught something in the Zephyrian officer's eyes. Not just desperation, but rage. Someone had murdered his people and was now preventing rescue efforts. It was a double atrocity that demanded justice. Lieutenant Torres, give me Admiral Harrison again. Emergency priority. When the Admiral's face appeared on screen, Chun didn't wait for pleasantries. Sir, The hegemony has established a quarantine blockade. Warships. They've already fired on relief efforts. Harrison's expression hardened. Copy that, Captain. Updated orders are incoming. Operation Nightingale is now a combat mission. Rules of engagement. Any ship preventing humanitarian aid delivery is to be considered hostile. You're authorized to use all necessary force to ensure medical supplies reach the Zephyrian worlds. Understood, Admiral. The Prometheus will hold position at the system's edge until the fleet arrives. Negative, Captain. Those people are dying while we debate tactics. You are to proceed immediately. Establish contact with the Zephyrian Defense Fleet and coordinate a breakthrough of the blockade. Shun felt her pulse quicken. Sir, that's 30 enemy ships versus 1 destroyer. Captain, 40 years ago, humanity made a promise when we joined the galactic community. We swore that never again would we stand by while innocent people suffered and died. The Zephyrians asked for medical aid. By God, they're going to get it. The transmission cut out, leaving Chun staring at the tactical display showing the massive enemy fleet between her ship and the dying worlds beyond. She had 200 crew members, advanced weapons, and the most sophisticated medical bay in the sector. The hegemony had overwhelming numerical superiority and the element of prepared positions. Captain, her executive officer asked quietly. Chun straightened her shoulders. The Prometheus had been named for the mythological figure who stole fire from the gods to help humanity. Today, they would steal hope from despair. Battle stations, she commanded. All hands prepare for combat operations. Set course for the Kepler 442 system, attack speed. And someone give me everything we have on hegemony fleet tactics. If we're going to break a blockade, we better know how to hurt them. As the destroyer's engines roared to maximum power, Chen gazed at the star charts one more time. Somewhere ahead, an entire species waited for salvation. Behind them, the human fleet raced to provide backup, and between them stood an enemy that had already shown they would commit genocide to achieve their goals. The Zephyrians had asked for medical aid. They were about to learn that when humanity brought medicine, they also brought the means to ensure it reached those who needed it. The Prometheus leaped into hyperspace, carrying hope toward a dying star system and the promise that help was finally coming. The Prometheus dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, immediately activating passive sensors to avoid detection. Captain Chun stood behind the tactical station, studying the enemy deployment with growing concern. The intelligence reports had been accurate. 32 hegemony vessels formed a loose sphere around the inner planets, with patrol routes that left few gaps for a ship to slip through undetected. Sensor analysis complete, Captain, reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson, the ship's tactical officer. We're looking at 8 heavy cruisers, 16 destroyers like ourselves, 6 missile frigates, and 2 command carriers. Standard hegemony formation. They're not taking any chances. Dr. Reeves approached from the medical bay, carrying a tablet loaded with data. Captain, I've been monitoring Zephyrian communications. The situation is deteriorating rapidly. Major cities are reporting 90% infection rates. Their government has essentially collapsed. Only military units in orbital facilities remain functional. Chen nodded grimly. Every hour they delayed meant thousands more deaths. Communications. Are you picking up any Zephyrian Defense Fleet signals? Affirmative, Captain. 3 ships holding position near the 4th planet's moon. They're using low-power transmissions, probably trying to avoid hegemony detection. Put me through. The plague continues to spread. Our people are dying faster than we can care for them. The capital city of New Sandros has lost over 2 million citizens in the past week alone. But Captain, his voice lowered, there's something else you should know. We detected the source of the initial outbreak. Chun leaned forward. Go ahead. It was not natural. Hegemony infiltrators released biological weapons simultaneously across 12 population centers. We have sensor logs of their stealth ships departing just before the first cases appeared. The bridge crew exchanged dark looks. Confirmation of genocide wouldn't change their mission, but it certainly clarified the stakes. Commander, my fleet is en route, but we're the advance element. Do you have detailed scans of their defensive positions? Transmitting now, Sith replied. Captain, you should know that the Hegemony Commander has issued ultimatums to any approaching vessels. They claim to be maintaining quarantine procedures under galactic health protocols. Any ship attempting to breach their perimeter will be destroyed to prevent plague spread. Convenient excuse for genocide, Chen muttered. Commander, we're going to get medical supplies to your people. Can your ships assist in creating a distraction? Sith straightened proudly. My people are warriors, Captain. We may lack the numbers to break their blockade, but we can certainly draw their attention. When do you wish to begin? Chen consulted the tactical display. The hegemony formation was professional, but not perfect. Ships at the outer edge of their patrol routes occasionally found themselves isolated for several minutes. If they could time an assault correctly, give us 2 hours to prepare, then begin your distraction runs on the opposite side of the system. We'll punch through during the confusion. Understood. Captain, thank you for coming. My people will remember this. The transmission ended, leaving Chun to study the tactical situation. Breaking through wasn't impossible, but it would require precision and significant risk. The Prometheus was outnumbered 30-1, but human ships had advantages that might level the playing field. Dr. Reeves, how long to synthesize enough medical supplies for the initial relief effort? Our pharmaceutical fabricators can produce broad-spectrum antivirals and immune system boosters within 6 hours. For a targeted cure, I'll need samples of the pathogen and detailed Zephyrian biological data. Get started on the general treatments. Mr. Jackson, I want a full weapons and defensive systems check. We're going to need every advantage we can get. As the crew prepared for what could be a suicide mission, Chen retreated to her quarters to review the classified files on hegemony tactics. The enemy alliance consisted of 5 species united by their fear of human expansion. Their ships were well-designed and their crews competent, but they had one crucial weakness. They had never faced a human medical relief mission before. Most species approach humanitarian aid as a secondary concern, something to handle after military objectives were secure. Humans had a different philosophy, born from their own history of devastating plagues and wars. When human medical ships responded to disasters, they came prepared to fight their way through any obstacle. The Hippocratic Oath to do no harm had long ago been interpreted to include preventing others from harming those in need of healing. 2 hours later, Chen returned to the bridge as battle stations sounded throughout the ship. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, checking weapons systems and preparing the medical bay for potential casualties. Captain, Zephyrian ships are beginning their diversionary attack, reported Lieutenant Torres. Long-range sensors show the hegemony fleet responding, pulling ships from the inner perimeter. Excellent. Helm, plot a course through the gap near the 3rd planet. Engineering, I want maximum power to engines and shields. Weapons, target the closest hegemony destroyer once we're committed. The Prometheus accelerated toward the enemy formation, using a nearby asteroid field for cover. Chun watched the tactical display as hegemony ships moved to respond to the Zephyrian assault on the opposite side of the system. The distraction was working, but it wouldn't last long. Contact in 30 seconds, Jackson announced. Enemy destroyer subjugation is moving to intercept. Fire when ready. The human destroyer erupted from the asteroid field like a vengeful angel, plasma cannons and missile tubes speaking in unison. The first salvo caught the hegemony ship completely off guard, overwhelming its shields and punching holes through its armor. Before the enemy could respond, a second volley finished the job, leaving the subjugation drifting and powerless. 1 down, 31 to go, Chen muttered. Continue toward the planet. Best possible speed. Alarms blared as the rest of the hegemony fleet realized what was happening. Ships began turning from their patrol routes, converging on the human intruder with deadly intent. But the Prometheus had momentum and surprise, plus the inherent advantages of human military engineering. Multiple missile launches. Jackson called out. Count 60 inbound, various trajectories. Point defense online, evasive maneuvers. The destroyer twisted through space like a dancer, its automated defense systems spitting streams of projectiles to intercept incoming threats. Most of the missiles fell to the defensive fire, but several got through, testing the ship's armor and shields. Shields down to 80%, reported the engineering officer. But we're still in the fight. Return fire. Everything we have. The Prometheus had been designed for exactly this type of engagement. A single ship fighting against overwhelming odds. Human naval doctrine emphasized survivability and firepower over numbers. Each destroyer carried enough weaponry to threaten ships twice its size, along with defensive systems that could absorb incredible punishment. Plasma bolts and kinetic projectiles reached out toward the closest hegemony vessels. A frigate took multiple hits and exploded in a brilliant flash, its fuel tanks igniting. A cruiser staggered under the assault, its weapon systems going offline as critical components failed. We're through the outer perimeter, Torres announced. Course plotted for the third planet. But their breakthrough had come at a cost. More hegemony ships were converging on their position, and the Prometheus couldn't fight them all simultaneously. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy buildup from the lead hegemony carrier, Jackson warned. They're charging some kind of super weapon. Chen had read about hegemony planet crackers in the intelligence files, weapons designed to shatter worlds by destabilizing their planetary cores. If they fired it at the infected Zephyrian world below, they're going to destroy the planet, she realized with horror. Complete genocide to cover up their biological attack. The tactical situation suddenly became clear. The hegemony hadn't just established a quarantine. They were preparing to eliminate all evidence of their war crimes. The approaching human fleet would find nothing but rubble and the convenient story that they had been forced to destroy an infected world to prevent plague spread. All stop, Chen ordered. Target the carrier's weapon systems. Captain, at this range we'll be sitting ducks for their entire fleet, Jackson protested. If that weapon charges fully, 12 billion Zephyrians die. Target the carrier. Everything we have. The Prometheus came about, presenting its main guns toward the massive hegemony vessel. At maximum range, the targeting solutions were difficult, but human fire control systems were the best in the galaxy. The destroyer's entire missile inventory launched simultaneously. 48 warheads racing across space toward the enemy carrier. The hegemony ship's defensive systems engaged frantically, shooting down most of the incoming threats. But human missiles were designed to be hard to kill, and 8 made it through the wall of defensive fire. They impacted the carrier's forward section in a series of brilliant explosions. Direct hits, Jackson called out. Their planet killer weapon is offline. But the victory came at a terrible price. Freed from the threat of the superweapon, the entire hegemony fleet turned their attention to the lone human ship. Energy beams and missile salvos converged on the Prometheus from multiple directions. Shields critical. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7. Chun gripped her command chair as the ship shuddered under the assault. Around the bridge, control panels sparked and smoke began filling the air. But the damage reports also carried good news. Dr. Reeves reports medical synthesis complete, Torres announced over the chaos. She's loaded the treatments into emergency pods for surface delivery. Launch them now. 6 medical pods ejected from the destroyer's belly, using emergency thrusters to boost toward the planet below. Each contained enough broad-spectrum treatments to help thousands of infected Zephyrians, along with manufacturing templates they could use to produce more. Pods away, Jackson confirmed. Estimated surface impact in 20 minutes. Chun felt a moment of satisfaction even as her ship continued to take punishment. The primary mission was complete. They had delivered medical aid to the dying world below. Now, they just had to survive long enough for the rest of the fleet to arrive. Captain, hyperspace signatures detected. Torres called out excitedly. Multiple ships incoming. The tactical display exploded with new contacts as the Fifth Fleet dropped out of hyperspace directly into the battle zone. 12 destroyers, 6 cruisers, and the massive carrier Defiance materialized in perfect battle formation, their weapons already charging for combat. Admiral Harrison's voice crackled across the communications channel. All hegemony vessels. This is Admiral Marcus Harrison of the Terran Fifth Fleet. You are interfering with humanitarian operations in violation of the Galactic Accords. Stand down immediately or face the consequences. The lead hegemony commander's response came back immediately. Human fleet, these worlds are under quarantine by order of the Galactic Health Authority. Any approach will be considered an act of biological terrorism. Negative, Harrison replied coldly. We have evidence of hegemony biological warfare against the Zephyrian Collective. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system before we classify you as war criminals. Chen smiled grimly despite her ship's damaged condition. The cavalry had arrived, and they were clearly in no mood for diplomatic niceties. The hegemony fleet suddenly found themselves outnumbered and outgunned by some of the most advanced warships in the galaxy. The enemy commander's next transmission carried considerably less confidence. Admiral, we are prepared to negotiate. 30 seconds, Harrison repeated. Starting now. What followed was the fastest military retreat in recorded galactic history, as 30-plus hegemony vessels fled toward hyperspace with almost comedic haste. They left behind only wreckage and the fading energy signatures of their hasty departure. As the immediate threat disappeared, Chen finally allowed herself to relax. The medical pods would reach the surface soon, beginning the long process of healing an entire world. The hegemony's genocide attempt had failed, and justice was finally coming for an innocent people. But as she looked at the damage reports scrolling across her screens, Chen knew this was just the beginning. Someone had tried to use human biological research to commit genocide. Someone had been willing to destroy entire worlds to cover their crimes. And someone was going to pay for what they had done to the Zephyrian Collective. 3 days after the breakthrough of the hegemony blockade, the Zephyrian homeworld of Kepler Prime presented a scene of controlled chaos. Human medical teams worked alongside surviving Zephyrian doctors in hastily established treatment centers, while overhead, the Fifth Fleet maintained a protective umbrella against any return of hostile forces. Captain Chun stood in the primary medical facility that had been erected in what was once New Sandro's Central Plaza. The prefabricated structure hummed with activity as teams of medics processed hundreds of patients daily. Through the transparent walls, she could see the city beyond, once home to 15 million beings, now eerily quiet with empty buildings and streets littered with the debris of civilizational collapse. The broad-spectrum treatments are working, Dr. Reeves reported, approaching with a tablet full of data. Infection rates have dropped from 90% to 63% in the primary population centers. But we need to move faster. Chen nodded, studying the recovery statistics. Each percentage point represented hundreds of thousands of lives saved, but the numbers were still devastating. What about the targeted cure research? That's where we have a problem. Reeves pulled up biological schematics on her tablet. The pathogen is more sophisticated than we initially thought. It's not just attacking Zephyrian cellular structures. It's learning and adapting to our treatments. Every time we develop a countermeasure, it evolves new resistance mechanisms. Meaning someone designed this to be virtually incurable. We're fighting an artificial plague that was specifically engineered to destroy the Zephyrian species completely. Chun felt anger building in her chest. The clinical precision of the genocide attempt was almost as horrifying as the act itself. Someone had spent years developing the perfect biological weapon, then deployed it against an innocent population. Doctor, I need you to focus on one specific aspect of this research. Find out exactly how they got our biological data. Before Reeves could respond, Lieutenant Torres jogged across the medical facility with an urgent expression. Captain, Admiral Harrison needs you aboard the Defiance immediately. They've captured something important. The trip to the fleet flagship took 30 minutes via shuttle. The Defiance was an impressive sight, 2 kilometers of advanced human military engineering, bristling with weapons and defensive systems. As Chen's shuttle approached the massive hangar bay, she could see other ships conducting salvage operations on hegemony wreckage scattered throughout the system. Admiral Harrison met her personally in the hangar, which was unusual for such a senior officer. His expression was grim, carrying the weight of recent discoveries. "Captain, we've been analyzing the wreckage of that hegemony cruiser your people damaged. What we found is going to change everything." He led her through the ship's corridors to a secured briefing room where several intelligence officers were studying holographic displays of recovered data. The information flowing across the screens made Chen's blood run cold. "This is Operation Harvest," Harrison explained, gesturing to the display. "A multi-year hegemony plan to systematically eliminate species they consider threats to their expansion." The Zephyrians were just the beginning. The hologram showed a star chart marking dozens of systems with various alien species. Each was color-coded according to threat level and assigned different biological weapons specifically designed to target their unique physiologies. "They have weapons designed for everyone," Chen whispered. "Crystalline beings, gas, giant dwellers, machine intelligences, and humans," Harrison confirmed darkly. "According to these files, we're priority target number 1. The biological weapon designed for us makes what they did to the Zephyrians look merciful." Chun studied the human-specific data with growing horror. The hegemony's anti-human pathogen was designed to attack neural tissue while keeping the body alive, essentially turning infected humans into mindless drones. It would be a fate worse than death. "Sir, how do they get our biological research data?" "That's the worst part." Harrison activated another display showing personnel files. Dr. Marcus Webb, former researcher at the Titan Medical Institute. He defected to the hegemony 3 years ago, taking with him complete biological profiles for every species in our alliance network. Chin recognized the name from medical journals she had read during her academy training. Webb had been considered a brilliant xenobiologist before his mysterious disappearance from Titan Station. He's been working with them to design species-specific biological weapons using our own defensive research as a starting point, Harrison continued. The irony is that our preparations to defend against biological attacks became the foundation for the most effective biological weapons ever created. Where is he now? That's why you're here. Intelligence indicates Webb is aboard a mobile hegemony research facility somewhere in the Vega sector. Your ship has the right combination of speed and medical expertise to lead a strike team to capture him. Chun felt her pulse quicken. The opportunity for justice was appealing, but the tactical challenges were enormous. "Sir, a mobile research facility could be anywhere in a 100-system region. We have a lead." Harrison activated another display showing intercepted communications. The Zephyrian attack was apparently just a field test. Webb needs to return to his main laboratory to analyze the results and finalize the anti-human weapon. Our cryptographers have been tracking coded transmissions that suggest he's heading for a facility near Vega Prime. The briefing room's atmosphere grew tense as the implications sank in. They weren't just dealing with the aftermath of one genocide. They were potentially preventing the destruction of humanity itself. "What are my orders, Admiral?" "Take the Prometheus and 2 other destroyers. Find Webb's facility and capture him alive. We need his research to develop countermeasures for all the biological weapons he's created. And Captain," Harrison's voice hardened, "make sure he understands the consequences of his choices." 3 hours later, Chun was back aboard her ship as repair teams finished fixing the damage from their previous engagement. The destroyer's hull now bore the scars of battle, but her crew's morale was higher than ever. Word had spread throughout the ship about their mission. They weren't just seeking revenge. They were potentially saving every human colony in known space. "Course plotted for the Vegas sector, Captain," reported the helm officer. We'll rendezvous with destroyers Marathon and Spartan at the outer marker. Chen took her position in the command chair, studying the tactical displays. The Vega sector was contested space, technically neutral, but known to harbor various criminal enterprises and illegal research facilities. If the hegemony was operating there, they would have significant defensive measures in place. Dr. Reeves, what's the status of the medical team's planetside? Zephyrian medical staff are taking over primary treatment operations. Our people have trained them on the synthesis equipment, and infection rates continue to drop. They'll manage without us. Good. We have a new mission priority. Chun briefed her medical officer on the search for Webb and his research facility. If we capture him, I'll need you to analyze everything he's developed. We need to know exactly what weapons exist and how to counter them. Understood, Captain. What about the targeting data for finding this facility? Intelligence suggests they're using modified hegemony heavy cruisers as mobile laboratories, large enough to house sophisticated research equipment, fast enough to avoid pursuit, and armed well enough to discourage casual investigation. The journey to the Vega sector took 18 hours at maximum hyperspace velocity. During the transit, Chin used the time to study everything available about Dr. Marcus Webb. His personnel files painted a picture of a brilliant but increasingly isolated researcher who had become obsessed with biological warfare applications. Webb had joined the hegemony after publishing papers arguing that biological weapons were a more humane alternative to traditional warfare. His theory was that targeted pathogens could eliminate enemy populations without destroying infrastructure or causing environmental damage. The clinical detachment of his writing suggested a mind that had lost sight of the moral implications of his work. Captain, we're approaching the rendezvous coordinates, announced Lieutenant Torres. The Marathon and Spartan are waiting for us. The three destroyers formed up in a search pattern and began systematically scanning the Vega sector. The region was cluttered with asteroid mining operations, independent trading stations, and various installations of dubious legality. Finding one camouflaged research facility would be like locating a specific grain of sand on a beach. Contact called out the sensor officer after 6 hours of searching. Large vessel holding position behind the third moon of Vega 7. Configuration matches hegemony cruiser specifications, but it's heavily modified. Chun studied the sensor returns. The ship was definitely hegemony in origin, but someone had added numerous external modules and sensor arrays. It looked exactly like what a mobile research laboratory might require. Any escort vessels? Negative. The facility appears to be alone, but it's in a highly defensible position behind the moon. They'll see us coming long before we can close to weapons range. Shouldn't consider their options. A direct assault would likely succeed, but it might also give Webb time to destroy his research or escape in a smaller vessel. They needed a more subtle approach. Captain, Dr. Reeves interjected, what if we pose as a medical relief ship? Webb knows about the Zephyrian operation. If we claim to need his expertise to refine the biological weapon, he might let us approach. It was a dangerous deception, but it offered their best chance of getting close enough to strike. Chun ordered the communications officer to establish contact with the facility. The response came quickly, transmitted on hegemony military frequencies. Dr. Webb himself appeared on screen, looking older than his file photos, but unmistakably the same man. His appearance had changed. Hair now completely gray, face marked by the stress of his work, but his eyes still held the cold intelligence of a dedicated researcher. Unknown vessels, identify yourselves, Webb demanded. This is a restricted area under hegemony authority. Dr. Webb, this is Captain Chun of the Terran Medical Research Division, she replied, using a fictional unit designation. We've been sent to consult on biological countermeasures. The Zephyrian operation exceeded expectations, but we're detecting some adaptation in the pathogen. Our superiors want your analysis of potential resistance mechanisms. Webb's expression shifted from suspicion to interest. Terran medical research? I wasn't aware of any human involvement in the Harvest Protocol. Recent development. Certain parties within human command structure have decided cooperation serves our mutual interests. Chun hated every word of the deception, but kept her expression neutral. Fascinating. Yes, I'd be very interested in discussing the Zephyrian data. Dock with Port 3. But I should warn you, this facility has significant defensive capabilities. Any hostile actions would be inadvisable. The transmission ended, leaving Chun with mixed feelings. The deception had worked, but it also meant pretending to collaborate with genocide. She reminded herself that sometimes dirty work was necessary to achieve just outcomes. All ships maintain current formation but prepare for immediate action, she ordered. We're going aboard that facility to capture Webb and secure his research. Remember, the future of human space may depend on what we accomplish in the next few hours. As the Prometheus approached the research facility, Chun prepared for what might be the most important mission of her career. They had delivered medical aid to dying worlds and fought their way through enemy blockades. Now they would face the architect of galactic genocide himself. The hegemony facility loomed ahead, its hull bristling with sensors and weapon systems. Somewhere inside, Dr. Webb continued his work on biological weapons that could destroy entire species. But he was about to learn that humanity's commitment to healing included a willingness to surgically remove threats to innocent life. The final phase of Operation Nightingale was about to begin. The docking process with Webb's research facility felt like entering the mouth of some technological predator. Captain Chun led a boarding party of 20 Marines and medical personnel through the airlock, weapons concealed but ready for immediate action. Dr. Reeves walked beside her, carrying medical scanners that were actually sophisticated recording devices designed to capture whatever biological research they encountered. The facility's interior was a maze of laboratories and research chambers connected by sterile corridors that hummed with the sound of powerful computational systems. Chun noted the layout carefully, multiple escape routes, defensive positions, and what appeared to be emergency destruction protocols built into every section. Dr. Webb met them personally in the main laboratory, a vast chamber filled with biological analysis equipment and containment units. The sheer scale of the operation was staggering. Hundreds of different pathogens were being developed simultaneously, each targeting different species with horrifying precision. "Welcome aboard the Ascendant," Webb said with apparent genuine enthusiasm. "I must say, I never expected human medical researchers to show interest in biological warfare applications. Your species has always been rather squeamish about such necessary tools." Chun bit back her immediate response, maintaining the deception. "Recent events have forced a re-evaluation of our strategic doctrine. The Zephyrian operation demonstrated the effectiveness of biological solutions to territorial disputes." Webb's eyes lit up with the fervor of a researcher discussing his life's work. "Exactly. Traditional warfare is so crude, so wasteful. Biological weapons offer surgical precision, eliminate the population while preserving infrastructure and resources. It's the most efficient form of conquest ever devised." He led them through the laboratory, proudly displaying his various projects. Chun saw research stations dedicated to developing pathogens for dozens of different species. Crystalline beings, methane breathers, silicon-based life forms. Webb had systematically designed extinction events for each of them. "This is remarkable work," Dr. Reeve commented, her voice steady despite the horror they were witnessing. "How did you achieve such specificity in targeting biological systems?" "The key was obtaining detailed physiological data for each species," Webb explained enthusiastically. "Defensive medical research provided the perfect foundation. Once you understand how to protect a species from biological threats, developing offensive applications becomes trivial." He stopped at a workstation displaying complex molecular structures. "This is my masterpiece, a pathogen specifically designed for humans. It targets neural pathways while keeping the body functional. Infected humans remain physically capable but lose higher cognitive functions. They become perfect manual laborers without the inconvenience of independent thought. Chun felt sick looking at the research data. The clinical efficiency of designing slavery via biological weapon was almost more horrifying than simple genocide. But she forced herself to continue the charade. Impressive. What about deployment mechanisms? Ah, that's where the hegemony's resources proved invaluable. Webb activated another display showing delivery systems. Atmospheric dispersal, water supply contamination, even integration into food production systems. The pathogen can be delivered through any vector that reaches the target population. Dr. Reeves stepped closer to the display, her medical scanners working furiously to record everything. Dr. Webb, these deployment methods would affect allied species as well. How do you ensure selective targeting? Simple, Webb replied with chilling casualness. You don't. If allied species become casualties, that merely demonstrates their biological inferiority. Natural selection applied on a galactic scale. The mask finally slipped completely from Webb's face, revealing the true monster beneath the scientific exterior. Chin realized they were looking at someone who had moved beyond viewing other species as inferior to considering them as nothing more than test subjects for his research. Dr. Webb, Chan said carefully, I'm curious about your security arrangements. This research represents enormous strategic value. Oh, quite sophisticated, Webb assured her. The facility is equipped with quantum encryption, automated defense systems, and emergency destruction protocols. If we're ever compromised, the entire station can be sterilized within minutes. No evidence would remain. That explained why they had found the facility alone. Webb was confident in his ability to destroy everything if threatened. Chun began mentally calculating how long they would have once their true identity was revealed. Dr. Reeves, perhaps you could examine the Zephyrian pathogen samples? Chun suggested, hoping to move her medical officer closer to the research data. Excellent idea, Webb agreed. The Zephyrian work exceeded all projections. 97% mortality rate with complete breakdown of social structures. Future operations will use it as a template. As Reeves moved toward the biological containment units, Chun positioned herself closer to what appeared to be the facility's main computer core. She needed to ensure that all of Webb's research would be captured, not just whatever they could scan with portable devices. Dr. Webb, one question about the deployment timeline for human-specific pathogens. When do your superiors plan to begin implementation? Soon, Webb replied, his attention focused on the data displays. The Hegemony Council wants field testing within 6 months. Initial deployment will target isolated human colonies to verify effectiveness before broader application. Chun felt ice forming in her stomach. 6 months to prevent the biological destruction of human civilization. The timeline was even more urgent than they had realized. That seems aggressive, she commented. What about contingency planning if the pathogen proves less effective than projected? Oh, I've developed several variants, Webb said proudly. Different targeting mechanisms, varied incubation periods, alternative transmission vectors. If one fails, we simply deploy another. Eventually, we'll find the optimal solution. The casual discussion of human extinction finally broke Chen's restraint. Her hand moved instinctively toward her concealed weapon, but Dr. Reeve caught her eye and shook her head slightly. They needed more time to capture all the research data. Dr. Webb, Reeves called out, I'm seeing some unusual molecular configurations in these samples. Could you explain the enzymatic breakdown mechanisms? As Webb moved toward the containment units, Chen used the distraction to access the computer terminals. Her personal device contained sophisticated hacking software designed specifically for hegemony systems. Within seconds, she was downloading terabytes of biological warfare research. The enzymatic targeting is quite elegant, Webb was explaining to Reeves. It's impossible for natural resistance to develop because we're attacking fundamental biological processes. Chen's download reached 80% completion when alarms suddenly began blaring throughout the facility. Red lights flashed, and automated voices announced a security breach in multiple languages. "What's happening?" Webb demanded, moving toward the security console. "Probably a false alarm," Chen replied, stepping between him and the controls. These systems can be quite sensitive. But Webb was no longer fooled. His eyes narrowed as he studied her face, and Chen saw the moment of recognition. "You're not medical researchers at all. You're military personnel." The charade was over. Chun drew her weapon as her boarding party revealed themselves throughout the laboratory. Marines appeared from concealment positions, while Dr. Reeves quickly secured the biological samples. "Dr. Marcus Webb, you're under arrest for crimes against sentient life and conspiracy to commit genocide," Chen announced formally. "You will surrender immediately and cooperate with our investigation." Webb laughed bitterly. "You're too late, Captain. Even if you stop me, the research already exists. Other facilities, other researchers, copies of everything I've developed. The Hegemony's biological warfare program will continue with or without me." "Maybe," Chen replied, "but you won't be part of it." Webb's hand moved toward what appeared to be an emergency control panel. "You underestimate the precautions I've taken. This entire facility can be sterilized in 60 seconds. Everything dies. My research, your people, all evidence of what we've accomplished here." Chen realized with horror that Webb was prepared to trigger the station's self-destruct system rather than allow his capture. The download from the computer systems was only at 90%. They would lose crucial data about biological weapons targeting other species. "Dr. Webb, destroying this facility won't stop us from developing countermeasures," she said, trying to buy time. "We already have samples from Zephyrian sites." "Perhaps, but you'll never have the complete research database. Without my original work, you'll be trying to reverse engineer solutions from incomplete data. It could take years during which the Hegemony completes their conquest of human space." Webb's finger hovered over the destruction control as Chen's Marines closed in from multiple directions. The tactical situation was impossible. Any sudden movement might trigger the self-destruct, but allowing Webb to activate it would ensure the loss of critical intelligence. Dr. Reeves suddenly spoke up from her position near the biological containment units. "Dr. Webb, before you destroy everything, I have one scientific question. How did you solve the cross-species contamination problem?" Webb paused, his academic pride overriding tactical considerations. "Cross-species contamination? Your pathogens are so sophisticated, surely they must occasionally jump to unintended targets. How do you prevent that?" It was brilliant misdirection. Webb couldn't resist explaining his scientific achievements, even in the face of capture. "Actually, that's one of my most elegant solutions. Each pathogen includes genetic kill switches that prevent replication outside the target species. It's impossible for them to evolve beyond their original parameters." Chen's download reached 100% just as Webb realized he had been manipulated into providing additional crucial information. His face contorted with rage as he slammed his hand down on the destruction control. "Initiate emergency protocols. Sterilize all biological materials. Destroy everything." But nothing happened. The facility's systems remained normal, without even a flicker of the threatened destruction sequence. Looking for this? Chief Petty Officer Martinez emerged from behind a control panel, holding what appeared to be a critical system component. "Figured you might try something like that. So we disabled your self-destruct while you were giving your grand tour." Webb stared in disbelief as his final gambit failed. The Marines closed in quickly, restraining him before he could reach any other control systems. "Dr. Marcus Webb," Chun said formally, "you are hereby arrested for war crimes, genocide, and treason against the Galactic Accords. Your research will be used to develop defenses against the biological weapons you've created." As Webb was led away in restraints, Chun surveyed the vast laboratory filled with instruments of biological warfare. They had captured one of history's greatest monsters along with the research needed to counter his weapons. But she knew this was only the beginning of a longer struggle. "Captain, Dr. Reeves reported, "We've secured samples of all biological agents and complete research databases. The data suggests at least 6 other facilities like this one exist throughout hegemony space." Chen nodded grimly. Operation Nightingale had evolved from a simple medical relief mission into something much larger. They had saved the Zephyrian Collective and captured crucial intelligence about biological warfare programs threatening multiple species. "Helm, set course for Terran Command. Maximum speed." She activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. Mission accomplished. We have delivered medical aid to our allies, prevented genocide, and captured research that will protect countless worlds from biological warfare." As the Prometheus departed the Hegemony Research Facility, Chen reflected on the strange turns of fate that had led them here. The Zephyrians had asked for medical aid, and humanity had responded with warships. But sometimes the most compassionate act was to fight those who would harm the innocent. Dr. Webb sat in the brig, his life's work now turned against the very organization that had supported him. His biological weapons would be studied, understood, and countered. The Hegemony's grand plan for galactic conquest through genocide had failed before it truly began. Behind them, the captured research facility was being secured by the other destroyers. Every pathogen, every research note, every piece of equipment would be analyzed and used to develop defenses for threatened species across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Collective would survive, their population slowly recovering from the artificial plague that had nearly destroyed them. Other species marked for elimination would receive advance warning and protective treatments. And somewhere in hegemony space, plans for biological warfare were falling apart as their greatest weapon became their greatest weakness. The final message of Operation Nightingale was simple but profound. When innocent people called for help, humanity would answer. They would bring medicine when possible, but they would also bring justice when necessary. And anyone who threatened the helpless would learn that human compassion was matched only by human determination to protect those who could not protect themselves. In the vast darkness of space, the destroyer Prometheus carried hope toward home, bearing news that the galaxy was a little safer than it had been before. The Zephyrians had asked for medical aid, and humanity had delivered exactly what they needed. Not just healing, but the promise that they would never face such horrors alone again.